Roundtable 4, and we've got University and Agricultural Extensions, of course, featuring Jeanine Davis, NCSU, Shawn Swartz, who's also here. I guess he'll be right back in just a moment. Ross Young, as well as Kate Farley. And I'm not sure if everyone's present. I will check and make sure we've got everyone on board. Robert, how would you like to begin?
I would like to indicate that the schools have this desire to help this plant out. However, most of the time they're talking about alternatives in berberine. And that is good. However, it doesn't really lead to herbalists growing goldenseal. In my estimation, there isn't a person out there who shouldn't be growing goldenseal if they're in the right area, especially in southern Appalachia. So it seems like a disconnect that the ability to help goldenseal has not been as strong in the herbal schools, in my estimation. It's just the schools like NC State, where Jeanine is working, and Margaret, they're on the forefront of this. The same thing with the people up in Virginia. They're doing some of the really great work. Kate should possibly start us off with some of her information. She's a student, and she's a PhD candidate and been doing a lot of research in the areas of woodland medicinals. And so I think that she has an interesting story to tell here.
All right, thanks, Robert. And can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate Farley, and I'm a doctoral candidate in sociocultural anthropology at Washington University in St. Louis. And I also have a master's degree from Yale in environmental management from the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. But I am currently based here in North Carolina, and I'm working across central and southern Appalachia. So my current research is looking at some of the conservation challenges that are associated with these wild Appalachian forest medicinals, especially ginseng and goldenseal, as a lens through which to understand some of the conservation and environmental thought in American culture more broadly. So as an anthropologist, I spend my time conducting not just formal interviews and reading what other people have written, but I'm also getting out in the woods and hanging out with wildcrafters and forest farmers and trying to get as much of an inside view as possible as to what it's actually like to be out there. So this kind of research is really important when it comes to conservation because it can really shine light on some of the social and cultural reasons for why these plants are being overharvested. Most of my research so far has been focusing on ginseng and ginseng diggers, but a lot of the ginseng diggers that I have spoken with will also dig goldenseal. And some of these reasons are purely economic, as has been touched on earlier this afternoon. As goldenseal becomes more widely known and prices increase, there is a much greater incentive for wildcrafters to harvest greater amounts of goldenseal. This is compounded by some of the broader economic conditions. Wildcrafting has a long history in Appalachia as an important source of supplemental income for folks who whose income from formal wage labor is either inadequate or unavailable. So actually, as a side note, I anticipate that this year we'll probably see a lot more wildcrafting and poaching just because so many people have lost jobs from COVID-19. That is something that people I've spoke with will often turn to when they need some extra income. And there also do appear to be some substitute effects between ginseng and goldenseal. Some of my informants have told me that as regulations around ginseng become increasingly tight, a lot of folks will turn to digging goldenseal, especially during the times of the year when ginseng harvest isn't permitted. And then also, there's a lot of important cultural dimensions too. I mean, there are important historical and cultural reasons. So goldenseal it's an important part of Appalachian folk medicine. Historical documents back in like the 1800s will talk about, the mountain folks using goldenseal. And wildcrafting in general is a part of Appalachian culture. And a lot of people will do it as a way of sort of connecting with their heritage. So my take is that pretty much any attempt to ensure goldenseal sustainability is going to have to contend with some of these economic, historical, and social factors. And we should think seriously about what the implications of any kind of total outright ban on wildcrafting might be. So social science research, like the anthropological work that I'm doing, can sort of help us figure out what some of these factors might be and what effective solutions are. And it's not as simple as just demonizing the diggers as like irresponsible exploiters who don't care about the environment. I'm very wary of how some of these kind of like negative stereotypes about Appalachia sometimes get drawn into this conversation. This idea that a lot of the folks who are out there poaching, they don't care, they're uneducated, they're selfish, they're just driven by addiction to meth or opioids. And like that is true for some people to an extent, but the actual story is a lot more complicated than that. And in my experience, a lot of these diggers, even ones who are harvesting illegally, they really do care about the health of their local forests. They just don't always know what the best thing to do is. There are differences of opinion about what a healthy forest even looks like and what the best way to get there is. So, I mean, I think we need to understand what their motivations and constraints are, and that can help us develop a way forward that will enable us to minimize unsustainable wild harvesting of goldenseal and create more room for a sustainably grown forest farmed goldenseal. And it might mean that there's going to be a total ban on wildcrafting, at least in North Carolina. That might end up being the best solution. But the voices of the wildcrafters and the people who are actually out in the woods harvesting this plant from the wild, their voices need to be taken into account.
Thank you so much. That was great. Okay. Who's next? Jeanine?
Sure, and what would you like me to cover, Robert? Our big thing is we would love to do so much more research and have so many more projects working with forest farmers and helping develop an organized network, but it all comes down to the funding. That's our big issue. A lot of the work that we did many years ago, back in the very early 90s, was interestingly supported by the industry. Wilcox Natural Products, Nature's Way, they were the supporters of a lot of those early studies on cultivating goldenseal. So I think right now we need to work together, and I'm excited to be part of this group right here, that if we can come together as nonprofits, universities, businesses, how can we make this happen, bringing together all of our resources that we have to work with. And some of that's got to be financial.
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why I'm happy that John Aeger is interested in this subject and is an advocate for us at the General Assembly. It seems to be, in my mind, logical that human beings would want this wonderful plant that will help human beings. And to do things to hurt it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make logic. I believe that if enough pressure is put, and one of the reasons I'm doing this is that goldenseal, unlike ginseng, has a scattered support system. And what I believe is necessary is some kind, especially in our age of communication, is to get something together that supports goldenseal along all of these entry points that the plant comes in contact with. And so in putting a group together, hopefully we'll have more impact on funding. Legislation is one area that has not been really done very well. I think should be. I do believe what you're saying, that as we found out from Mountain Rose, that they're actually, as an industry, going out and doing some of that stuff. And as Ed Fletcher said, his industry supported some of your research. Mm-hmm. I believe that this pressure from this group could happen in the near future to get this cloud of misunderstanding about this plant gone, and that there's a concerted effort by especially the universities and herb schools to push this into an area where they do have some pressure and where they do have some ability to influence the people who have the money, but we haven't really, as a Goldenseal group, done that. And so I was hoping that that could be part of the process.
Mm-hmm. And a point I want to be sure to make that I'd almost forgotten is when we talk about doing research on growing these plants, I think it's very important to make sure that what we're talking about works all over the place. And we learned that very long ago when we did some research on shade and soil pH with Goldenseal here in North Carolina. And some of my grower friends tried to use it in Ontario, and turned out it didn't respond the same way. So we need to keep that in mind, that it's going to respond differently in different environments and different soils. I mean, Goldenseal growing here versus in Tennessee on those more alkaline soils there, it's almost like a totally different plant. And so again, if we can be coordinated on this, we could have the same kind of study going on in multiple areas. So we're coming up with some solid information.
Right, and that's the future. What we want to do right now is just concentrate on North Carolina for this presentation. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So one of the issues that needs to be understood when it comes to universities and why there hasn't been more support and what needs to occur before there can be support is that these products, a commodity crop grown or wild harvested in the forest, doesn't really fit into any clear academic lines. Jeanine's laughing there. In forestry, these are considered non-timber forest products, which basically means they exist outside the traditional discipline of forestry. Jeanine's and Margaret in horticulture, these aren't growing plants in the woods, is not by any means traditional horticulture. And people like Jeanine and Margaret are very few in university settings across the nation. Botanists may have a scientific interest in it, but not necessarily in viewing it as a commodity. And so, you know, when people come into the university, you know, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your name. Not Katie. Is it Katie is it Katie? But anyway, in sociology, looking at this plant, yeah, Katie.
Anthropology, but yes.
I was, because of Katie Commender, I was thinking for a second, I may be confusing you. But, you know, so there's sociological aspects to these plants. And really, one of the things that's so fascinating about plants like ginseng and Goldenseal is that they integrate so many of these various disciplines together. And true successful research needs to look at these things as a collaborative venture between many different wheelhouses as they are in academia. And that's something that is pretty hard to pull off in many situations. Most horticulturists don't want to think too much about plants grown in the woods. Most foresters don't want to think too much about a crop that's not trees, and it really just doesn't fit. So when people are interested in doing research, and they go out to pursue grants, and they're looking for someone to work with in university settings. It's just very hard. There aren't a whole lot of people across the nation who are doing this in a university setting.
I don't disagree. I think if we think outside the box in your specific area, because Warren Wilson is very dear to my heart with so many activities that I've been there too, and so many people I know, wouldn't it be great if the university would produce Goldenseal for their students and educate the students about the use of Goldenseal and why it's important for everybody to be growing it in their medicinal pharmacy garden that they have or have the ability to. So that's the extra area where if the students and their parents and everybody are getting to know about Goldenseal, you're building up this group of people who see the value of it and then can support. But I don't disagree with your analysis on where we are.
Well, we're doing just that, but we're able to do that because we're a liberal arts college with the work program, and those are also very few. So it's I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done or that it can't be done, and hopefully it will be done more. It's contrary to how academia traditionally operates in terms of scientific fields and funding, and therefore it's just challenging. That's all.
Well, I appreciate that input. I really do. Anybody else out there would like to say something? Joe, you up for, you teach an awful lot. How is this all gonna affect you and your teaching of Goldenseal?
Yeah, I teach a lot about how to grow all these woodland crops. And, I can show people because I've been doing it for about 40 years. My methods, and Juliet with her herb school did a lot of filming. She's got the how to grow herbs class online. So I'm very much involved in all that. I'm trying to construct a new educational facility at the end of my road, which just got nipped in the bud with the whole virus thing. But the whole idea was to set up a herb school mainly aimed at growing the herbs. So hopefully we'll get back to that one of these minutes.
Yes. Yes.
I've also got a lot of videos, propagating Goldenseal. I got a video on that. Sustained harvest of ginseng, partial root harvest of ginseng, all that kind of thing.
Well, is it possible we could add some of your Goldenseal stuff to the toolbox?
Yeah, sure. It's up there on YouTube for free.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Robert, why don't you ask Ross about the possibility of distributing Goldenseal through extension the way they used to do it, at least used to, with the ginseng seeds?
Yeah. Is he on?
Oh, yeah. I'm here, Robert.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so Ross Young, I'm the extension director in Madison County. Been around quite a while, done a lot of work with ginseng over the years. Not as much with Goldenseal. Did some work on it back probably 28 years ago, but it's been a while. At the county level with cooperative extension, except we are the county arm of the land-grant universities across the country. And we do have a big staff when you look at all of us, because we're out in the counties. Our product is education, not necessarily promotion. We educate based on the research that folks like Jeanine produce. We take that research and then share it with the public. What drives our initiatives and what drives our ability to teach and the topics we teach on is demand. So when farmers, landowners come to us and say, hey, will you teach us how to grow this? Will you teach us that? That's what drives our initiatives. We send that information to Jeanine. Then Jeanine may be able to find money and do research on it, whatever the commodity is and the specialists that would be associated with it. With Goldenseal, I've not, in my career, had a lot of demand from the grower side on Goldenseal. They may be going to people like Joe and others and getting that information there, and that's great. They're great teachers, but that demand hasn't been very strong here. to answer Janine's question about ginseng, I do get a lot of calls about ginseng. I do have a lot of people asking me how to grow it for the first time, how to grow it sustainably. So there is and has been more work done at county levels with ginseng, including seed sales. So it's probably been a while, I'd say 10 or 12 years since we've sold ginseng seed, but it was a very small fundraiser for us. We bought seed in bulk, repackaged it, and sold it. Made enough money to cover our postage and a little bit of dollars, but not much at all. But we bought as much as 50 pounds of ginseng seed, repackaged it into small quantities, and then we sold it to the public. Took a little bit of risk on that because we're spending money out of our own pocket. It's not state money. The state doesn't give us a budget to do things like that with. So that was a county specific. But again, that was also dictated by demand. That was farmers asking me, where can I get ginseng? Can you buy us bulk ginseng? Can you do this? When the farmers are asking that, landowners are asking us that, we'll do anything we can to try to help. I run a pretty large value-added center with loading docks, and we do group purchases of everything from wax boxes to jars for canning, you name it, feed, organic fertilizer, nutrients. We'll bulk order about anything you want. And Goldenseal would not be outside of our realm at all in Madison County. I cannot, however, speak for every other county because counties are specific in nature and they're all run differently. Mine's a little bit unique in that I have this value-added center, and I just can't, I can't speak for all of them. But that's where we're at. Be happy to help any way we can.
Great. So if we had farmers in Madison requesting Goldenseal rhizome starts, that could possibly push the needle?
Sure.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah. It is not a normal activity for us, though. For a county extension office to buy and resell something, there's only a handful of us that are bold enough to do that. It is not our mission. It is not something that's in our job description in any form or fashion.
I understand. Is it, if we got a toolbox together on growing, is it possible that you could put on a little demonstration and find out if there is some interest for purchasing starts and start it off that way by trying to push out our toolbox that we get?
Depends on what the toolbox is. The word push makes me nervous because our office doesn't push anything. We don't promote things either other than education. So short answer, probably yes, but there could be some caveats to how we could go about that.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else on this table that needs to be heard from? If not, Lisa, are you back up here?
Yes, I'm right here.
I just want to add that.
Go ahead.
Through, I was just going to add that through educational programming, like Ross said, the selling of seed or the putting out of seed may not be the main goal, but the education is. And we are involved with some other county extension agents in the area, and we often try to put out material in those efforts. But putting it to a scale of getting out material to start forest farms, scaling up, as is some of the effort here, would take a different angle.
Okay.
All right, so we're all set for table 4.